How's everybody doing? All right, so here we are again, live from Worcester. It's Thursday night. We're going to have another one of our free education events. So, without further ado, if I could have Steve, if you could come on up here. Steve is going to be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance, so if I could have everyone outstanding as you are able. I can understand that. It is on tape for all the marbles.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, Steve is going to tell us briefly about the work that he's doing with vets and with the opioid crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. So my name is Steve Mandilli. I was in Iraq in 2005. I was injured. I was sent back home. I had a spinal cord injury, traumatic brain injury, PTSD. My spine's fused together now. I have a spinal cord stimulator implanted in my spine as well. So it's just like a constant electricity going through all my legs and everything. And I was on 57 different prescription drugs in the last 10 years, 10 of which were opioids. Last 5 years was fentanyl, which is very going around right now like crazy, oxycodone, Xanax. Those were my three that got me through every day. I didn't live by the hour, I lived by the dose. I counted pills all day to make sure I make it to my next feeling of withdrawals. And I was a shell. I was awake maybe 2 hours a day trying to get out of bed and trying to just wake up, which I could never do. My tempers were really bad. I got lost a lot wherever I went. I was just I had zero quality of life. It was bad. My wife kept me alive a lot through it. Then we have 2 daughters now, and for the first 4 years of my oldest daughter's life, I was never around. I was always laying down in bed. We didn't play. So then afterwards, I went to my doctor and said, I've had enough of this. It's got to be something else. And they said, well, no, really, the only thing you can go to now is getting a pump and put in your body so you can have a better supply of the opioids. And they told me that was my only answer. Yeah. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't just do it. You know, like they were telling me I was 28 when I got hurt. I'm 39 now, and they would say, you know, we do this to people that are dying of cancer. We do this to people that are terminally ill. And we don't want to do this to you. So when the doctors started talking about that, I realized that was really a terrible option. But and again, my wife, she worked at the Framingham Women's Corrections Facility, and she was the family preservation coordinator. She saw the people that would come in that were addicted to opioids, to heroin, stuff like that, and they'd be forced detox, and they were just, everything that she saw them do, the characteristics she saw me do on a daily basis, or at least every 48 hours. So she brought it to my attention that I was addicted to it. I just didn't have to struggle to get it. I just called the VA, say, you know, I need my refill, they send it in the mail, or I could drive to the VA where it was, and I could pick it up. It was never an issue. It was completely free too. So finally we decided I had to do it, had to get off. And my wife had been, it was 2012 and marijuana had just been made medically available. So she mentioned it as an option that I should try, and I just come out of the military. I was like, no, you know, that's for stoners, that's not something I want to get into, just, no thanks, you know. I had to help people, you know, get their urine tests in the military and everything. I was a retention officer. I had to tell them, you know, if you do that again, you're out, and stuff like that. So it was the stigma of it was really deep inside of me. Like, I felt like, all right, I'm doing something wrong. I still fight with it as, all right, I'm still doing something that a lot of doctors talk bad about, but you know what? This is the thing that has brought me back to life. It has given my kids a father. I was able to smoke a joint and go snow blow my driveway, which I never did in 10 years. I always had people come over and help me, and I was like, this isn't right. Like, why was this my only option, and this is what I get now? I got to pull my kids around the yard in a sled. I hadn't done that in whole entire life since she was 4 years old. So to be able to do that because of a different medicine that isn't as popular with everyone, I got over it. I said, worry about what everyone thinks about me, or be a good father, be a good parent. So that, I got to that point and got off all my drugs. I'm getting off my last one currently right now, it's Cymbalta. I'm still getting off that one, but that will be the last medication that I take from any sort of pill. And it took a lot to get to that, but now I started an organization because I thought I need to go help. I need to help everyone else with this. I had slept out in front of the State House for a week to get meetings with politicians. I did anything I could think of. I couldn't do a lot. I didn't have a lot of money, but I told my wife, I'm like, I'm big, I'm loud. I can just go up and talk to people. And I learned so much from doing that. I didn't expect to really gain anything from it, but when I was getting engaged by people walking by, what's an opioid? What are you talking about? And telling them that, and they were like, oh, I thought that was just heroin. I'm like, no, what I was taking was heroin that was made in the lab, and it's cleaner than anything anyone else can get. I can get the best, and that's what I was on. And I started realizing after people were following me around to buy me lunch, because I didn't want any money, I just wanted to share information and let people know what was going on. And the stigma on both ends, the stigma that being an addict is something, you know, that you're a terrible person. Those people aren't terrible people. They're hooked on something that's really messing with your brains. I can speak about it because I happened to do it for 10 years. And it just numbs you. You're just numb. You're not thinking right. And that's what's happening. And they get lonely. And that's when I had my suicide attempt. I tried to swallow a handful of pills and a bunch of fentanyl patches to end it because I said I couldn't do it. But I choked on it. I choked it all up. I'm thankful for that. But now it's the stigma of that marijuana is just like this evil thing, and it's going to ruin communities, and it's just going to be terrible. And it's like, it's already there. Everyone's already doing it. It's just like the stigma of it that's keeping people inside. I have veterans that reach out to me all the time. I help them. I take them to go get their medical cards, and then they can't even go to a dispensary now because we're priced out of it. I can't even go to a dispensary. And it's legal, and I have my medical card, but I can't afford the medicine. So to vote yes on 4 will help bring the prices of that down. We'll get a lot more access and make it a lot more safer for veterans to feel like they can make a choice and get off of opioids that they don't need. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Could we please have Representative Paul Frost and Regina Huffenagel come up and set a seat? And we're going to force you to be civil and friendly, because we have one microphone. So anyway, Regina, obviously we can figure out who Regina is, and we probably can figure out who Paul is. Well, thank you both very much for coming tonight. Regina's going to be speaking in favor of question 4, and Representative Paul Frost is going to speak in opposition. So I have a question I want to throw out to the both of you, and then I guess we'll go ladies first. There's a lot of people who feel that marijuana is a gateway drug. And I have seen that over the years myself, and I also know of some people who are bragging about growing marijuana, and they said they can't wait for marijuana to get legalized because then they're going to start growing cocaine. Because everyone likes to push the issue. You know, like we're supposed to drive 65, we drive 75. Speed limit's 40, we go 50. Lots of things like that. So how would you both answer that question?
So the question is, marijuana is or is not the gateway drug? We are now recognizing that not only is it not the gateway drug, it's actually the exit drug. As you just heard Stephen talk about, people who are addicted to opioids, if it wasn't for medical marijuana, they would still be addicted to opioids. I think it was the Attorney General who just recently talked about how it's considered an exit drug. because we have so many examples of in places where marijuana is legalized for not just medicinal use, but also for recreational use, that they are having a massive reduction in their opioid addiction problems, and they're filling way less prescriptions for opioids because they have access to medical marijuana to be able to service that need.
Paul?
Sure, thank you very much. Well, first off, I mean, the Attorney General of the Commonwealth is opposed to this question, as well as the Governor and Democrats and Republicans alike. So it's actually something that we actually agree on. And I would further say that, medical marijuana is legal. We're not trying to, we're not asking you to vote against medical marijuana. And that's still going to stay in place even if question 4 gets rejected. So if there are merits, as we're hearing, there could be, then that could still be out there for folks to use in those situations if it indeed can help be a quote unquote exit drug. And you still have concerns that it does help introduce folks to go to that next level. We start here, well, let's go try something a little more, get a bigger high from, or go in and take something that is going to be far more difficult, for them to handle, and you start getting into cocaine, or you get into heroin, or you get into other things. So, or other types of drugs, and there's plenty of them. So, and I think that that's also a concern, that it can be. And lastly, I'll leave it as, is that, again, you have a coalition of people, not just Democrats and Republicans who are opposed to this, but from the public safety front, from health. I mean, most of our healthcare groups out there are rallying behind this. Our chambers of commerce are against this. So it's the business community, healthcare community, the public safety community are not for this and think this is a bad idea. So I don't think it's just as simple as saying it's just an exit drug and it's going to make things better.
Okay, the last little point I want to throw, and I'll obviously let each of you give your thoughts and your feelings and your facts. Isn't impaired driving is impaired driving? And one of the things that I think is a big concern is that when more drugs are illegal, because alcohol is technically a drug, and there's an awful lot of people, I know from living in this city, there's an awful lot of people riding around high already. And I understand that there's a large difference between the guys who's riding around, smoking, and somebody who's been injured and needs it for medical purposes. But how are we going to handle the impaired driving aspect of it? Plus, it's going to be a big extra cost because now they're going to have to come up with other ways, other than going into the alcohol type thing. So check that.
It's a great question. Nobody wants impaired driving. Whether it's legal or illegal, like you said, people are doing it right now. And what's fantastic about the state of Washington is that with all of the revenue that they've generated from their legal marijuana sales, they're actually leading research and development in trying to figure out devices that are going to be able to test if somebody is actually high while they're driving. They now have something that's actually in the market, and it's being tested in the market. Because we know right now, THC actually stays in your blood for like 30 days. So while you may be able to do a blood test that shows somebody has THC, you can't tell if they're actively high. Nobody wants high driving, just like nobody wants drunk driving. So whether it's legal or illegal, it's still going to be a problem. So we should take the revenue that we have, and we should develop methods that we are able to figure this out, which is actually what's happening right now.
Paul?
Thank you very much. In the state of Washington, when marijuana became legal for recreational use and so forth, statistics have been showing that since then that impaired driving with the use of marijuana has resulted in double the fatal accidents. We've seen a number of fatal accidents double in the state of Washington as it relates to impaired driving with the use of marijuana. And the other problem is that it's difficult to, when you pull somebody over for impaired driving, to test whether or not they're high on marijuana. It's not like a breathalyzer test. that they can have you take, or you can choose to take if you've been drinking. So there's no way to really test it, and it's much more difficult to enforce it when you have impaired driving. So I think there's, again, and the other thing I would say is I understand the fact that some people are just doing it anyway. So we might as well legalize it because it's just happening anyway. And I understand that argument to some degree. And sometimes that's not a bad argument to make for certain things. But in this situation, I think you're going to see more people doing it. I think you're going to see more young people doing it. I think you're going to see a greater access of folks doing it. Sometimes what I understand is that the edibles, when you take an edibles, or sometimes you have some of this marijuana, newer kinds they have today, that it can last longer or it kicks in later. And so someone who gets in the car originally feels fine. And then all of a sudden doesn't feel so fine when they're maybe halfway home or almost home. So, there's a lot of challenges here. I just think we're going to be encouraging more people to do it because we're green lighting, go ahead, grow it, smoke it, have it, whatever, and use it whenever you want. And I think we're just going to decrease the chances, and that more people are going to be out on the road impaired because of marijuana.
Okay, Regina, we'll give you, 5-6 minutes to talk about whatever you want to talk about in regards to it.
Okay, thank you. So this is a little change. I'm here on behalf of the Yes on 4 campaign, but I don't actually work for the organization. I work for a complementary organization. So they did ask me to cover tonight because while they would love to be here, right now they're 55% in the polls, so they're trying to ride that wave and make sure that they're going to all of the other events that they can, which turned out to be 12 today. So I'll do my best to touch on the important parts, answer any questions that you may have. I'll be here afterwards for a Q&A. Just a quick poll of the audience. 3 questions, yes, no, undecided. Who is for legalization of marijuana? Who is against legalization of marijuana? Who's undecided? Okay, great. All right. So my name is Regina Huffnagel. I live in Charlestown, Massachusetts. I'm a military police combat veteran. I spent about 15 years in federal law enforcement between the Department of Justice and the Department of Defense. Every day I would go to work for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and every day I would admit and release inmates. It really didn't take me long to notice that I'm admitting and releasing black men who are serving 10 to 15-year sentences for possession with intent to distribute, while the white fella, who's a convicted child molester, is serving 3 years. And it really began to haunt me. And I wondered, what is wrong with our criminal justice system that somebody who has actual physical victims is only serving 3 years? In the end, in 2010, I actually quit. I joined law enforcement because I care. I care about my community, and I care about my family, and I wanted to keep them safe. And I realized what I was doing was not servicing that. Thankfully, in 2013, I found Law Enforcement Against Prohibition. Has anybody heard of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition? Okay. So LEAP is an international organization of over 150,000 current and former law enforcement professionals. We're cops, judges, attorneys, probation, parole, and corrections. And it was founded right here in Massachusetts by a retired state trooper. His presentation really framed for me what it was that I didn't understand what was going on in the criminal justice system. And I didn't understand the economics of the war on drugs. That was the day that I joined LEAP. LEAP does not advocate for drug use. We've been on the front lines of the war on drugs for decades. We've seen that eradication efforts have failed miserably, and so we seek to implement positive policy changes in the war on drugs. We don't need to have a bloated prison system. We have drugs and gang cartels as a result of the war on drugs, and it needs to stop. So to touch on a couple of points for the Yes on 4 campaign. In brief, it will remove the marijuana distribution industry from gangs and cartels and put it into the hands of licensed and regulated sellers who, if they break the rules, just like a liquor store, they will risk fines and losing their license. It will generate revenue to fund effective drug awareness, education, prevention, and treatment programs. And if there's any question about if that will happen, you need to look no further than Colorado and Washington State. it will eliminate the gateway. The current gateway to other drugs is actually the dealer. Voting yes on 4 will help law enforcement focus on real crime that has actual physical victims. It is a major step in repairing the relationship that law enforcement has with the community. It will stop incarcerating those who are suffering from addiction, because we know incarcerating people who are addicts is not helping them. We also know that if you go to prison, there's plenty of drugs there. Regulation will control potency, purity, and the safety of marijuana. So for youth use, right now, youth has access to unregulated, unsafe marijuana. Dealers don't ask for ID as a condition of a sale. In fact, they use marijuana more than they use alcohol and cigarettes. Current government surveys of youth in Colorado and Washington State show that with legalization of adult use, there has been no increase in youth use. If for nothing else, this shows that prohibition does not work. Those who were using it are still using it. But we do know that in the last 10 years, there has been a youth use of cigarette use decline of about 50%. This is partially because the market is regulated, but also because we've spent $1 billion educating the youth about the dangers of nicotine use. So while it is too soon to definitively determine if there is a decrease in youth use, based on the nicotine situation, we can deduce that it is likely going to happen. But in all fairness, it's just too soon to tell. What we do know for sure is that a yes vote on 4 will generate the tax revenue necessary to dedicate money to programs that will likely cut youth use, just like the nicotine efforts. The gummy bears. Question 4 creates a Cannabis Control Commission. It's a 3-member panel established by the state treasurer. This will adopt regulation, which will govern licensing qualifications, security, record keeping, health and safety standards, packaging and labeling, testing, advertising, and displays, required inspections, and any other matter that they deem appropriate, just like the Alcohol and Beverage Commission. There will even be a public discussion opportunity where citizens can go and talk about what they think is appropriate and what they want to see happen in their communities with regulated marijuana. There's a 15-member advisory board that's appointed by the governor. And as we've just heard, since we know the governor is against it, I think that the people who are on this advisory board are probably going to be pretty awesome. It includes a board member or an officer of a marijuana treatment center, 1 registered marijuana patient, 1 marijuana retail consumer rep, 2 experts in public health, 2 law enforcement experts, 2 experts in social welfare or social justice, 2 marijuana-related attorneys, and many more. Naturally, you wouldn't expect people such as car mechanics to be on this advisory board. You expect advisors to be professionals in the industry. The same way that you would expect medical doctors, nurses, and PAs to be on a state medical board. No one in this debate thinks that youth access is a good idea. I'm confident that an advisory panel with those qualifications would ensure proper regulations, packaging, and advertising. I wouldn't be surprised if it included some sort of fingerprint identification and 2-layer authentication like NSA style, because we know that the governor and the AG are completely against it. Right now we have no regulation. It's run by an illicit market, it's targeted to kids, and they use it. The gateway, cannabis is not a gateway. Most people who started with cocaine and heroin started with marijuana, and alcohol, and cigarettes, and cheesecake. Correlation does not equal causation. Most people who try alcohol and cigarettes, and marijuana, and cheesecake don't go on to try harder drugs. So the dealer is the gateway, not the marijuana. Advertising to kids will not happen. It is not allowed in Colorado. It is not allowed in Washington State. It's not allowed anywhere. If you go to any of the dispensaries, their windows are blacked out. When you walk in, it's a sanitized lobby, and you get ID. So So if you leave tonight and you go to get a bottle of wine or you go to get a six-pack, you can go in there with your kid. You're not going to be able to go into any marijuana dispensaries with your child because they will be underage. Impaired driving, unlike what was just said, Washington State has used their marijuana tax revenue to become the leader in research and development for devices that can accurately determine if someone is high while driving. There has been no increase in DUI. There has been an increase in testing for marijuana use. So while there's been no increase in DUI, they're simply finding that people who are being busted for DUI are also using marijuana. But there have been no increases in fatal crashes since marijuana has been legalized. In closing, if you like this presentation and you would like to hear more, because that was my abridged version, please go to leap.cc, book me. My name is Regina Huffnagel. I would love to talk to as many people as I can. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. You can learn to have these conversations with your friends. You can donate to the Yes on 4 campaign. You can donate to LEAP. Thank you for your time. I've got some sign-up sheets in the back if you want to put on your email so that you can hear some of the latest and greatest news. And thank you for your time.
Sorry, I don't want to get allergies, so I apologize if I start sniffing like trouble. Just want to say again, I'm Representative Paul Frost. I represent the 7th Worcester District. I'm from Auburn, Millbury, Oxford, and Charlton. At least those are the communities I represent. And you know, I just want to say we already kind of went around a little bit already with some of the points that I was going to make. In that, I think we're jumping too far ahead too soon with this. I think we need to see what's going to happen in Colorado and Washington State, maybe a little bit longer. I mean, the results are, you know, the facts are that within the first year after Washington State legalized recreational marijuana use, fatal traffic accidents from folks who are using marijuana doubled that. Those are statistics, so I suppose we can go through and try to find statistics and say something else, but those are statistics about Washington State. About access for kids. You know, Colorado did see an increase in teen use after it was legalized. And by the way, this has a homegrown provision in the law, or in the proposal to be law, that allows people to grow thousands of dollars worth of marijuana on their own property, even at the objection of any neighbors or anybody else, whether it's inside their house or it could be outside their house. And this is going to allow a black market for folks who want to sell it with no taxes, or want to sell it to kids, or what have you. Okay? It's going to sell it on Craigslist, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to sell it, you'll be able to do it without being regulated, because you're going to be able to just, you know, grow your own. And it's not something where, you know, you can't just, you know, lots of things you can't just go do and then sell on your own. And I think that's going to be a challenge that we're going to face when we're, you know, not trying to, you know, encourage our young kids, our young people to take drugs. We're sending a tough, a very bad message. Are kids still going to do it? Yeah, some kids are. But I think we still don't want to cross that line where it's kind of like, hey, it's really no big deal. And the access to it is going to increase tenfold, because you're still going to get it from people on the streets. There's still going to be a dealer, because that dealer can get it to your street or can get it to that kid who can't go in and get it from the store. So I think I'd ask you to, you know, just take that into account before you vote on November 8th, that this isn't a great panacea of money and resources. You know, that the problems it does create offsets some of the money tax revenue comes in. And in fact, in some of these states, the revenue isn't coming in as they promised that it would bring in. And in some, you know, in some places, communities have more of these of pot shops, if you will, than there are McDonald's or whatever else in the community. In communities, they're popping up all over. They're popping up all over the place. in your community. And I don't know if, if that's what we want. Do we want to be driving down our downtown of our local community and there's a there's a pot shop at every corner? I don't know. I mean, that's up to, again, the voters to ultimately decide this. So all I'm going to say is that, we're also dealing with a different potency of marijuana than perhaps was used 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And the other thing that concerns me is the edibles and children. The access to the edibles, obviously that's going to work. Okay, when you can go into a store and you can buy whatever in the edible format. The edibles currently in the way this is regulated under this proposal, the potency of the marijuana is not regulated. And I think, and in fact, in Denver, I believe they have seen a huge increase in ER visits of kids who have accidentally eaten edibles with marijuana in it. And they've had bad reactions or have had problems with it. I think we're just going to be encouraging more of those problems here in our state. So, again, all I'm going to say is that just rethink it, think about it, think about our kids, think about the folks that are kind of lining up against this. It's not like, it's the anti-fun police, okay, that are running out here going, well, we just don't want you to have that because you're going to have fun. Right? That's not what this is all about. It's not why people are, why many folks are opposing this. There are health ramifications, there are public safety ramifications. We are not going to just get rid of the drug dealer. They'll find other ways, and again, there's still going to be a black market for this stuff because they can sell for a heck of a lot cheaper than probably going to have to sell it with all the taxes and fees that are piled on, and get it to people who may not be able to buy it, like young people, will still going to get it through these dealers, and possibly a heck of a lot more because, again, people are going to be able to be their own dealers. So I think there's a lot of concerns here, and I hope that, listen, there's an issue about, putting people in jail and all that, and I don't disagree. And then those are things that we can deal with and tackle. But you can't, cannot just make that a justification of saying, listen, let's just legalize it. I think we can work with that. I don't think we should be throwing people in prison because they had a joint. Okay, no one wants to do that. Okay, you commit crimes while you're on drugs, well, that's a different story. Okay, you commit violent acts while you're on drugs, any drug, that's a different story, and you're going to go to prison. But that's a different reason, that's a different thing. So I hope that you vote no on 4. I appreciate you for your time. I know you want to get to the other questions, and I'm going to let you do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.